Hello, I'm Chris Williams from Read Comics They're Bad For You. Today we're going to be reviewing Good Omens Episode 5. We begin with Crowley, who's walking out of Azurphil's burning bookshop. Crowley thinks Azurphil was killed, not by particularly anyone really, and he howls in anger at the world and God himself, or herself in this case. Well, the thing is, how does he know Azurphil has been killed? He only assumes that. And he looks suitably angry as he leaves Azurphil's bookshop, even though he was partially covered in water, because firefighters were beginning to fight the fire even though he was inside the burning bookshop. So he's suitably angry as well as wet, and it was a funny scene there. Well, either way, we move on to Adam and his friends. Adam is going insane with power, and his friends are in fear of him. Eventually, Adam allows them to speak, and they say that they're not, and he says he knows they're not his friends anymore, but they should wait around to see his 4 new friends that are going to be there soon. Well, his friends that are right then and there, well, that's the thing about these characters here. Adam and his friends are maybe the worst part of the entire novel. Adam is going insane, and his friends continue to talk like, well, SJW nonsense. They say, you wanted to destroy the world? That's no reason to destroy the world, that it's horrible. That's a reason to change it, one of them says at one point in the episode. And as other people have said, these kids don't actually act all that much like kids. They act like parodies of kids, and they're the worst things about the entire show. But well, either way, he lets them go eventually, and they even take his dog with them. We'll get into more of that in a little while. Now we go over to Crowley. He's at a bar drinking, and he's mourning his friend, but that's when Azurphil, who has been able to come back to Earth after he escaped from heaven, after he told one of his superiors that he was not going to fight in the war. He appears in spirit form in front of Crowley. He tells Crowley that he's been discorporated. It means he's lost the physical body. He has to look for a person to possess, maybe a psychic or a medium somewhere. He tells Crowley to go over to Chadfield, because that's where the Antichrist is. Crowley gets right onto it. He gets into his car and he starts to speed off. Now, Azurphil, at this point, is trying to look for a host. And we get into a little bit more of that after we go back to Adam. Adam Young has totally lost his mind with his power. He's sad that his friends have left him, even though he knows that the 4 horsemen who are going to be his new friends are coming soon. He can't stand it. He goes back to see his friends. He tells them, "Give me back my dog." And his friends say, "No, your dog can make its own decisions," the girl says. And that's stupid. It's a dog. And the dog even leaves him because I guess it's been transformed into a little puppy. It's all stupid, and the characters are annoying. Eventually, they make Adam so angry and sad of what they say about him destroying the world and how he doesn't have the right to do it. It causes him to explode in a great amount of power, altering the world. And he sort of flashes back and reverts back to his original state of just being Adam Young. He still possesses the power, but his eyes are no longer glowing. Now, one of his friends gets ready to bash his head in with a cricket bat, and, well, there's some great friends there. But either way, he says, "I think I'm back to normal, or at least I'm myself again." And apparently they all make up, and it's all good. Now we transfer over to Madame Tracy. Apparently, on top of being a call girl, she's also a freelance medium. Now, she ends up contacting Azurphil, and he wants to possess her body, but she says she's trying to contact another spirit, and he says, well, there is another spirit here, and I guess I can let him talk. And there's this great scene where Madame Tracy is basically this guy who was married to this woman who's a real loudmouth, and he says to her, "After all this time, even when I'm dead, you continue to put words in my mouth and not let me speak. Well, here's a word from the other side. Shut up!" And it's a really funny scene, and I really like it. Now, afterwards, Madame Tracy finds out that a Zerphile has permanently possessed her. Now, we go back over to Crowley. Crowley is now on the motorway, trying to get out of London, but he realizes something. Because the Antichrist is back, it makes all the magic powers and sigils that demons and angels have made, well, particularly demons, flare up in great power, so the motorway is on fire. Now, he designed that motorway himself to try and make people angry and miserable, but because of how he designed it, because it was in the shape of a demon symbol, it's now on fire. He can't get through. Well, that's when Hastur, who has been able to escape from Crowley's trap, appears next to him. Hastur goats Crowley, and Crowley says, "Oh, what the hell," and then guns it through the fire. Hastur is suitably frightened. Hastur screams, "You're going to discorporate us both." But he's the one who discorporates, and Crowley breezes his way with his car on fire through the fire and out onto the highway and heading toward Tradfield. Now, we head back over to Madame Tracy, who's been talking to Zerphile that the Antichrist is back. Now, the commotion causes the witch hunter sergeant, who was sleeping in the neighboring room that Madame Tracy put him in so he could rest up, hears this, and he ends up thinking the demon is back, so he continues to call Zerphile a demon, but then Zerphile tells him to sit down and listen to his story, and that's how they enlist both Madame Tracy and the witch hunter sergeant into this plan to save the world. At least that's what Zerphile does. He gets witch hunter sergeant to listen to him, and they all end up flying on Madame Tracy's moped. Flying because Zerphile causes it to fly like E.T. But for some odd reason, Zerphile, even though he could fly anywhere, basically just flies about 4 feet off the ground and continues to follow proper roadway rules. Meaning that he's going to follow the road and fly and stop at stoplights, even though he could fly through the sky. Yes, he has all that power and he's going to fly like that. And it's a funny scene, and you gotta enjoy it. Watching him drive around on a moped while it's glowing blue and continuing to stop, and other people gawk at them. Well, they don't really see them gawking at, but I imagine people are just gawking at them, wondering why they're only flying 4 feet off the ground and just continuing to drive on the wrong side of the road because they're in England. It's a funny scene, and I really like it. The witch hunter sergeant is suitably frightened because he is flying. Now we head over back to Anathema and Percival. Well, they're trying to locate the Antichrist, and they figure out that it must be that him and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse must be at the American Air Force Base that is nearby Tadfield. Well, they head over there, and they manage to find a nook or a rather opening in the Air Force Base's security, and they head inside. Yes, a heavily armed U.S. military base has a giant opening that anyone can just walk through. And did I mention that this Air Force Base has basically access to every satellite and every communication device on the planet because it's a communications hub? Yes, the communications hub for the entire Earth. Well, it becomes that after the 4 horsemen use their powers to connect every machine to them so they can unleash the apocalypse. Is unguarded and anyone can just walk inside. Now all the characters converge at the gate to the military base. Crowley and Zerphile. Crowley says, "Hey, Zerphile, I see you found a ride. You look good in a dress," because he's possessed Madame Tracy. And this is how this episode ends, with all the characters, including the Antichrist, going off to square off against the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, I think this episode was good. Maybe I think it might also be the worst episode of the bunch so far, but it was good. Because what makes it not as good as the other episodes was what Adam and his friends were doing, how his friends were screaming at him to stop, and how Adam just wanted his dog back. They didn't really come off as real children, and it just and with their interaction with his friends and telling him to stop what he's doing, whether it came off rather mean. I know he's the Antichrist, but seeing that just put me in a kind of a bad mood. But either way, this episode was good, but I think it's the weakest episode so far. Now, though there were some good, fun parts to this episode that I really enjoyed, like the motorway and watching Crowley breeze his way out of it and scaring a couple of cops as he does so. He smiles with his car on fire. So, this episode is, I'd say, a B and an A series. Alright? If you like this review, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. If you're watching my videos but you're not subscribed, hit that bell. I want you to get notifications for all my future videos. And remember, hit that like button and leave some comments down below. And keep checking back in future videos for more information on my own independent comic book, Scumdogs. It'll be a funny and cool comic book when it comes out, and I want you to read it. I'm Chris Williams, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another review or video.